Well, the Championship came back with a bang this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today to dissect all of the action which took place over the weekend, and as always I want to get your guys' verdicts on everything that went down in the comments down below. As always, if you do going to enjoy, do leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Loads of talking points and juicy topics to dive into for today's video. Without any further ado, let's get stuck into the action. And starting out with Rotherham 4, Blackburn 0. I did not see this one coming. I had it down as a fairly comfortable Blackburn win in the end, given the way that Rotherham have been going recently, but Blackburn have been incredibly unpredictable this season, and generally speaking it's been pretty impossible to get a read on them all year with how up and down they've actually been. The lack of draws in there, the way they go from 0 to 100 each week, and what I found really interesting is that both Rotherham and Blackburn are the only teams in the Championship right now who have failed to pick up any points when they've gone behind in a match. So it was crucial whoever scored first in this game, and in the end it was Rotherham who took the lead after just a matter of seconds. Some cracking goals scored by Rotherham in this game, I thought, as well. The opener from outside the box, the Rathbone strike, which just about went over the line, the goal from the corner, and then Connor Washington wrapping things up in the 93rd minute. With Blackburn's inconsistency so far, it has been a tough one to get a read on. John Dole Thomason recently, the Blackburn fan base, I'm sure, has been very up and down sort of emotionally with how they're feeling about this team and the sort of performance they were served up there away at Rotherham. But from Rotherham's perspective, it was a massive result given their recent run of form, and particularly with some pretty tricky fixtures to come. Next up they've got games against Watford and Sheffield United, which won't be easy, but if they take something from that game, and certainly their spark in the final third, yeah, who's to say there couldn't be a little bit of a resurgence from them over these next few weeks. After that, to Ashton Gate for Bristol City 4, Birmingham 2. We mentioned in the preview to this one, two sides who weren't on a great run of form coming into this game, and a real opportunity for either of them to go ahead and get back to winning ways. Bristol City managed it in this one, and to be honest, Ashton Gate's not been a great place to be so far this season. A lot of sort of turgid and quite bland performances from this Bristol City side, but this performance right here really served as a reminder of how good they can be, especially going through the gears in the final third when some of those players at the top end of the pitch are on form. Semenyo, since the turn of the year, I think has been absolutely brilliant for this Bristol City side. Grabbed the goal as well as an assist in this one. Nahki Wells does well to hold off the defender for the second goal, and then Sykes with a couple as well. Thought Pring was another outstanding player for Bristol City in this game. Grabbed a couple of assists from them from that right hand side. And from a Birmingham perspective, they're slipping right back down into that relegation zone after the season started out with such promise for this Birmingham side. They've sort of fallen back into where a lot of people thought they might be at the start of the season. Their recent run of form in the Championship hasn't been good. 2 wins now from their last 10 matches. I think that's now 4 defeats on the bounce as well. Funnily enough, their next game is up against my side, North End, who, ourselves, we've not been on a particularly great run recently. We've been really up and down, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top in that one. But Birmingham, the problems seem to be mounting up, and for Bristol City, the home fans absolutely needed that, didn't they? Next then, to Turf Moor for Burnley 1, Coventry 0. To be fair to the away side, they had kept Burnley at bay for the vast majority of this game. Burnley, who did craft out some decent chances, but Coventry just about managing to keep them at arm's length. They themselves had some decent chances going forward, albeit couldn't get any of them on target, but in the first half especially, had a couple of close misses going against the side netting, and a couple which Muric had to dive for and things like that. In the end, where I think the quality really told for this one was the strength and depth that Burnley had to bring on from the bench compared to Coventry, who really are working with the bare bones at the moment. It really speaks to probably the work they need to go ahead and do in January. Even looking at the players that Burnley didn't bring off the bench, the likes of CJ Egan Riley, Scott Twine and Bailey Peacock Farrell, all on the bench for Burnley, and then the likes of Ashley Barnes, Nathan Teller, Goodmanson and Bastian all coming on and having an effect in the second half in the end. This Burnley side has been by far and away the best team in the league so far this season. They're now 16 points clear of third place, which is absolutely miraculous at this stage. And Coventry will probably be a little bit gutted given how well they contained Burnley from open play to then lose it from a set piece right towards the end. But that's the momentum this Burnley side has at the moment, and no one can seemingly stand in their way. After that, to Cardiff playing out a 1-1 draw with Wigan, a game which ultimately sealed Mark Hudson's fate as Cardiff manager, their second sacking of the season now. It goes back to the question of why they bothered getting rid of Steve Morison in the first place. I think when they went ahead and made that change from that point onwards, pretty much every metric has either stayed the same or got a little bit worse under Hudson. You know, we're talking win percentage, goals scored, league position and things like that. There's been no sort of progression from Cardiff from that point onwards, and getting rid of Morison at the point in the season when they did just seemed a little bit strange at the time, and I think even more so right now. Not to say that they were, you know, blowing anyone away at that point of the season either, but at least we were seeing maybe a few more signs of progression. They're now back to square one, and this frequency of, you know, managerial turnaround that Cardiff has been all too familiar with that fan base lately. We've even got some murmurings as of recording that Neil Warnock could be making a return there. Make of that what you will. But yeah, it's not been a great few months at Cardiff, I think that's fair to say. Wigan did get back into this one in the 96th minute thanks to a Wilkie equaliser, and I think a justified point in the end given some of the other chances they had created in this one. The problem with a lot of the teams in and around the bottom of the Championship at the moment has been in so many of these matches between sides who are fighting it out in this position at the moment, so many of them over these last few weeks and months have all ended level, and that's meant that no team in and around the bottom has really been able to go ahead and lift themselves away from each other, and this has been another example of that, of, you know, two teams who are well within the relegation dogfight at the moment who just can't make any ground up on any of the teams around them. And exactly the same could be said about Hull up against Huddersfield, this one ending level with two teams down at the bottom. To be fair to Hull, given their recent run, they have managed to put a little bit of breathing space between themselves and the bottom three, and were the favourites coming into this game. Huddersfield, I actually thought, started out this game really quite lively. Some of the chances they created, especially in the first 20 minutes of this game, looked like they could blow Hull out the water. The goal in the end comes from quite an inventive set piece that's been the source of a lot of Huddersfield's goals this season. Healick in the end putting that one away. But from that point onwards, Huddersfield's game plan completely shifted to sort of just protecting what they already had, especially in that second half when it was a complete sort of backs against the walls, dropping a lot deeper sort of game plan. In the end, I think they only had one shot throughout the entirety of that second 45 minutes. Hull had to probe and were frustrated for a lot of that second half, but in the end it was Estupiñán who came up with that moment of quality in the 98th minute to go ahead and lob the goalkeeper. So ending level in the end. I think there's quite a few frustrations probably from both sides after that one. And next up then to Kenilworth Road for Luton 2, West Brom 3. What a cracker we had between these two. I mentioned going into it that I had a sneaky feeling that West Brom may sneak all 3 points here, but I didn't see them doing it in such dramatic circumstances. We also spoke about this being possibly the biggest test that Corberan has faced at West Brom since arriving there, particularly since he's got his feet properly under the table. I know he had that game against Sheffield United early on, but to come back from 2 goals down away at a place like Luton really speaks to the confidence and the character in this West Brom side at the moment. You know, we wouldn't have seen anything close to this sort of comeback under the Steve Bruce tenure earlier on in the season. Luton, credit to them, started out really well in this game, first 20 minutes or so. Carlton Morris with a terrific strike from outside the box, and I'll go ahead and say it, he is one of the most complete strikers in the Championship for me. The range of goals he's scored so far this season, inside, outside the box, with his left foot, right foot, he can be a poacher, he can run onto things, so many things. Hold-up plays also excellent, and yeah, another brilliant goal for his collection. Adebayo makes it 2-0 for Luton, and then West Brom mount that comeback. DK gets one back before half time. Malumbi and Townsend then with the second half strikes in quick succession. And what was probably disappointing from a Luton point of view was that yes, West Brom did start to get up quite a bit of momentum, you know, particularly in that second half, but a lot of the goals, you could argue all 3, really came from a Luton mistake somewhere, and that's where ultimately West Brom managed to undo them. But this West Brom side looks destined for the top 6 at the moment, and I certainly still think that Luton will be in the picture, but this right now just speaks to the confidence they're playing with. At the Riverside, we had Middlesbrough getting the better of Millwall 1-0 in the end. Borough having to be persistent in trying to break down this Millwall side, who always cause quite a unique threat, particularly on the road. They set up quite solid for this one. Did pose some threats themselves on the counter-attack, but it was Middlesbrough who had to approach this one with, you know, both caution and keeping the tempo and the rhythm of this game going. In the end, it was Marcus Forss in the second half with the strike, takes it really well, cuts inside from the right hand side onto his left foot and just puts it below the goalkeeper. Honestly, his turnaround in form, not just the goals and assists that he's put up, but his overall game since Carrick has been in at Middlesbrough, I think he's been really impressive, starting to put up similar numbers to what we were seeing from his time at Brentford, and obviously why he was so highly rated in the Championship previously. Borough also slowly integrating Archer into that side as well, another cameo for him in the second half off the bench. I'm sure that when he gets more integrated within this side, they'll have another channel of goals to come from him as well. So yeah, up against a decent Millwall side, really good result there for Borough. Next then to Deepdale 4, Preston 0 and Norwich City 4. What a way to start out life at Norwich. David Wagner's first Championship game in charge, and I have to say, we'll get into everything that Preston did wrong in just a second, but from a North End fan's point of view, I've seen some very good teams come to Deepdale this season. I've seen Burnley come down, Sheffield United, a few others in the top 6 at the moment, but that performance right there throughout the 90 minutes from Norwich is hands down the best I've seen from any opposition side coming to Deepdale this season. The way their front three were interchanging, their midfield absolutely ran the show. Hernandez, Pukki and Dowell especially absolutely terrorised our back line. I know Teemu Pukki's numbers haven't quite been at the level that they have been in his previous couple of campaigns in the Championship, but that showing across the 90 minutes right there from him proves to me that he is still that guy, and when used in the right system is for me the best striker in the Championship, when he is completely on it, and he was just that in this game. Dowell also deserves a mention. Thought he was absolutely fantastic, dropping into those pockets of space in between our midfield and defence, and we just couldn't contain him throughout this one. So yeah, if Norwich continue playing like this and they can keep this new manager bounce going for the next few weeks, they'll absolutely surge up the Championship table, because we have been saying this about this squad. There is real quality in there if it is unlocked in the right way, and they showed Preston real levels in this one because they absolutely wiped the floor with us. And yeah, Pukki and Dowell both with braces, both absolutely fantastic. Two of the best individual performances I've seen at Deepdale this season. From a North End point of view, I mean, there were a few things. One was Norwich being absolutely excellent. Another was us being absolutely shambolic, and that's happened on one too many occasions so far this season, particularly at Deepdale. I think Lowe has to take some responsibility for this one. Got the tactical approach all wrong. There have been fans at points of this season calling out for us to revert to a bit of a back four, but where that falls down is we don't have the players at our disposal to go ahead and play that way. To play Bambo Diaby as a right back when he'd just been getting integrated into the team and started to play really well as a right-sided centre-half, I thought was a really strange option, when he's got a tricky winger in Onel Hernandez up against him. And in the end, we completely fell apart from that point of view. Thought we were badly lacking Ben Whiteman in midfield and probably Ched Evans up front as well, albeit two of the only real standout performers from North End were probably Cannon and Delap on their debuts. Each of them had a decent chance in the second half, but at least showed a little bit of something, whereas for the rest of the team, I really don't think it could be said for them after that one. So yeah, full credit to Norwich here. Thought they were absolutely excellent, but Preston back to the drawing board after a really miserable afternoon. Next then to Reading playing out a 2-2 draw with QPR. Quite the game of two halves happening in this one. Jeff Hendrick with a brace in the first half, took his first goal exceptionally well, shooting from range and getting it in at that bottom corner, then makes it 2 just before half time. But Reading in the second half then fall into that trap of holding on to what they have, inviting that pressure from QPR, and really I suppose the game changing substitute coming with that Jamal Lowe substitution in the second half. When he's introduced, QPR just get that spring in their step in the final third, sets up the first goal for Roberts, which is expertly taken, some great footwork, and then he levels it up in the 80th minute after Joe Lumley had made a terrific save, to be fair, at point blank range, but Roberts was there in the right position to go ahead and follow it up. Roberts, who things haven't quite click for him, I'd say, in a QPR shirt in terms of his overall ability and what he's brought to this QPR side so far this season. But perhaps this is, you know, the chance for him to go ahead and springboard the rest of his season in a QPR shirt. But promising debut, I thought, from Lowe off the bench, and perhaps more to come from him for the rest of the season as well. To Bramall Lane then for Sheffield United 3, Stoke City 1, with Stoke already on a bad run, going away to Bramall Lane to face this Sheffield United side, and the form they're at the moment was never going to be an easy task, and in the end Sheffield United comfortably dealt with them, taking the lead after just 9 minutes through Ilman Ndiaye, who's in a fantastic run of form himself, been brilliant all season, has a shout to have been the best player in the Championship up until this point. Brilliant opener for him, Low with that assist, and then it's all about Bogle on the other side for the other 2 goals. He was causing some real problems for Stoke throughout this one with those marauding runs from that right hand side, and while Stoke did threaten to get back into it with that goal from Powell just before half time, ultimately Sheffield United had the quality and poise to go ahead and kill this one off in the second half. Thought the defending for the 3rd goal, especially from a Stoke City point of view, was absolutely shambolic. How that one in the end got over the line. From a Stoke point of view, I think we'd all be quite foolish at this point to not be talking about this Stoke side as if they aren't in a relegation battle, because they absolutely are. You know, in previous seasons gone by, they've had some of those players within that squad in the end to go ahead and get them over the line, and even looking at that squad now, I think a lot of people will look at it and think, oh, they'll be too good and, you know, too big to go down. But in the Championship especially, the relegation zone takes no prisoners, and going off Stoke's run of form since the resumption of football from after the World Cup, they're averaging less than a point per game, and they're demonstrating everything that we've seen with relegation candidates in previous seasons gone by. Sheffield United continue to pull clear though in the automatic promotion spots, and more performances and results like that, it's hard to see them not in the Premier League next year. It was a much needed win for Swansea away at Sunderland. I did have Sunderland as the favourites coming into this one, but the game changing moment coming just 18 minutes into this game when Luke O'Nien was shown that red card for quite a late and reckless challenge in the end. It did take Swansea a little bit of time to properly assert their dominance, but if there is one team in the Championship who you don't want to go a man down against, it is a team like Swansea, who hold on to the ball as well as they do and are as patient in possession and will just play you around and tire you out throughout that 90 minutes. And in the end, the extra man certainly played into Swansea's favour. It was Matt Grimes, the architect of that opening goal, a brilliant ball into the far post, then flicked back by Manning into Perot. Sunderland did get back into it, some great work from Jack Clark down that left hand side, eventually bundled over by Neil, but then Cullen and Cooper managed to wrap this one up for the away side. And in the end, given how much the ball they had, chances and, you know, stuff along those lines in the second half, being with that extra man, I think a thoroughly deserved victory for Swansea in the end. Sunderland will dust themselves down and go again though. Had that red card not gone against them, this one could have unfolded completely differently. And then to round things off with Watford 2, Blackpool 0. I had a feeling coming into this one that maybe with the good vibes that had started to come back at Blackpool with the re-signing of Bowler and the result in the FA Cup, that maybe they could have done something in this one, taking advantage of Watford's current injury situation, but it didn't materialise that way in the end, and ultimately the Blackpool fans were served up with really more of the same. Another game where they failed to score and ultimately been hampered by some lackadaisical decisions at the back. Watford had to be patient in going ahead and making the breakthrough in this one, coming in the 72nd minute, but a great moment from Adamenyo in the end. His first senior goal, took the goal well. Maxwell, to be fair, saves the initial shot well, but he follows it in, and then Maxwell obviously guilty of giving away that late penalty, which Sarr goes ahead and tucks away for 2-0 Watford. It's a strange situation for Watford because they've gone up to 3rd in the Championship, and usually with the team in 3rd in the league at this stage of the season, we'd be thinking they'd be right on the heels of knocking on the door for automatic promotion, but they're 11 points behind Sheffield United in 2nd at the moment, and it doesn't feel like there's much of an automatic race that's possible from this point onwards in the Championship, because the top two have been such a cut ahead of everyone so far this season. So for the teams that are making up those positions in the top 6 at the moment, I think what it's more about now more than anything is making that bit of ground up on the teams below them and properly solidifying their place in the top 6, because Watford this season and even recently have been guilty of being quite, you know, fluctuating with their performance levels. But good win here for Blackpool, more of the same and more misery for Appleton. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure to get all your thoughts in the comments down below. It was quite the busy weekend we had in the Championship in the end. As always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.